John Grant here in Los Angeles, live on the 405. Happy Saturday morning. And Tammy from Wisconsin joins us. Her Twitter handle these days is Tammy WI for Walker. Is that correct? You've changed it once or twice. Is that fair to say?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. And I have to, in the interest of disclosure, this is old home week for me since I'm originally from Milwaukee, but, that's neither here nor there. I actually left during the Jim Doyle regime and came out to California during the Schwarzenegger regime, so I'm not sure I came out ahead on that. But anyway, Tammy is one of the more visible pro-Scott Walker social media users I've ever seen. As far as your personal political activism, how far back do you go? Are you a Walker backer from when he was originally elected? Did you do work for him in Milwaukee County, or just kind of give us a little bit of background about where your political activism comes from?
Well, when he was first elected, I actually in Waukesha County and still in high school, so doesn't go quite that far back. But when I did move to Milwaukee County, he was still in office here as our county executive, and I did vote to reelect him. And then shortly after that, he started showing interest in state politics and announced his run for governor. I didn't do much campaigning at that point, but I did vote for him, and my political activism didn't start until, I would say, probably January or February of last year, when the recallers really started getting active.
Okay, that's what I was going to guess, is that, you really started ramping it up when the stuff hit the fan on the recalls. Couple things I want to ask you. First of all, what is the state of conservative activism in Wisconsin? What organization do you most closely identify yourself with? Name some of the other ones which have, maybe come into being in the last several months or few years. Who are the big players as far as advancing conservatism in Wisconsin?
Well, obviously the GOP of Wisconsin. I'm in Milwaukee County, so
which is not GOP friendly territory. We should remind everyone else in the country. Scott Walker was elected county executive in Milwaukee County, and that is a Democrat stronghold if there ever was one. So, for the GOP to be active in Milwaukee County, that's a fair amount of work.
It is, but we are seeing more and more people join us in Milwaukee County. I'm affiliated with the party in Milwaukee County. I volunteer at the office in the county. And, we're even seeing more Democrats coming into the office to pick up their Scott Walker signs just because they don't agree with what's going on right now.
Yeah, and I'll ask you about that a little bit later, namely the events of the last week and the pro-union candidate essentially crashing and burning, and you're being left with, Tom Barrett, who ran against and lost to Scott Walker the first time around. But I want to get the nitty-gritty on the recalls from somebody on the ground. I was looking over the Journal-Sentinel today, and it looks like the stuff coming from the other side is the same stuff that's been coming from the other side for some time. I mean, they're talking about, some conversations Scott Walker had with a Coke impersonator, something he said to a billionaire in Janesville. There just doesn't seem to be any real new, fresh meat, and they're trying to sort of regurgitate that anti-union thing, and as we saw last week, since the union candidate didn't win, that didn't work. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. Kathleen Falk, the union-backed candidate, lost by a pretty wide margin to Tom Barrett, who is the mayor of Milwaukee. And there are a lot of Democrats that are very unhappy with that. You can kind of see them within the state kind of imploding. They're kind of eating each other alive right now.
Okay. My theory is, and you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong since you're on the inside looking out, is when the budget fix vote got derailed by the Democrat senators who fled the state and the dirtbags started stinking up the Capitol, you kind of had a perfect storm with the sympathetic media, and that brought in the outside agitators, and their intention was to bring money into the state and make an example of them, so the Ohios and the Michigans and the Indianas and the Pennsylvanias weren't going to be dissing the public employees unions once the example was made out of Wisconsin. Would you say that that's what happened there?
Oh, definitely. That's definitely the case. The unions came in and they put about $4 million behind Kathleen Falk into her campaign, and in comparison, I believe the last number that I had seen for Tom Barrett in his campaign coffer was about $830,000.
I can say this since I lived in Wisconsin for a few decades. I think that the political system there seemed like low-hanging fruit for outsiders. In other words, very unsophisticated and rubish, easily bought and paid for. And Obama back then was really not in trouble, so it was possible for the Organizing for Americas, the Media Matters, and the SEIU to sort of turn their focus on Wisconsin. Is that kind of the way it looked for you?
Definitely. When I got involved starting January, February last year, that's when we really started seeing the outsiders, especially becoming more vocal and, bringing people into the state and pouring money in here to try to get Scott Walker out of office. And, that was 2011. He had only been in office, less than a couple months. After he was sworn in.
Okay, let's fast forward to the primary election from the past week. Scott Walker ran virtually unopposed, except for a couple of no-name candidates. There was a record turnout for GOP voters on his behalf. The union candidate lost on the Democrat side. When you got to the end of the day on that thing, was any of that recall petition crap suddenly looking even less real than it did the first time around? I mean, didn't it really start to stink to high heaven?
Oh, absolutely. Just looking at the numbers here, if you total everything up between all the Democrats, they ended up with about 670,000 votes. In a primary that essentially meant nothing for the Republicans and Walker, he ended up with 626,000 votes.
Okay, and let me ask you this. Let's sort of direct it toward you personally here, because I remember you tweeting something some time ago about a neighbor or landlady who was kind of getting on your case for a sign you had in your car or something. We read a lot from the outside about friends, neighbors, going to battle over this, and is it as bad as it seems on the outside? And do you have any stories about, the way it changed your relationship with friends or neighbors or people who don't talk to you anymore?
Yeah, definitely. There have been some friendships that have suffered, people I don't talk to anymore. Even within my own family, I have a family full of teachers and public union employees, and there was a period of time where we weren't talking. I believe it was around Easter of last year. Normally we spend that time together. We didn't even have our Easter celebration last year because nobody was talking.
Do you see that getting any better, or is it just getting more dug in as time goes on?
It goes both ways. Sometimes it seems like it's getting a little bit better, and I think, from now until after the election on June 5th, I think it's going to get worse again. Okay.
Well, great. I appreciate those insights. I got one more question for you, and you're totally not prepared for this, but John Axford, do the hitters in the league have his number?
I have to say he hasn't had the season that I've expected him to have so far. So,
see, I think I'm a fan, obviously, but I think the Brewers are a a third-place team with him and a fourth-place team without him. I'm sorry. I see things that way. So anyway, the Cubs are in town this weekend. Yeah, the Cubs are in town this weekend. They have identical records, and the good news is they can't both be in last place before the weekend's over. So you got that to look forward to. Anyway,
great.
Thanks, Tammy. We appreciate you joining us. Keep fighting the good fight. I think things are on the upswing as far as Governor Walker's concerned, and the rest of the country's kind of looking at that and hoping and praying. And we want to thank you for joining us today on the 405 Live. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
John Grant here from Los Angeles, and we'll be right back.